Hey everyone, my name is Skylar Creston, also known as Unicorns and Typewriters. I have been reading for as long as I can remember, and with that passion also came a passion for writing. I am a writer. I'm not published, but I have a BFA from Ithaca College in upstate New York, and I have an MA, my master's degree, from Bath Spa University in writing for young people. And I just feel like I have a lot to share with those experiences, and I hope that's something that interests you and that you might come to my channel to hear about. Let me know below if you'd be interested in videos about anything specifically on education. I really have a lot of thoughts. But yeah, so I hope to, on this channel, talk about books. I hope to talk about my love for Harry Potter, and I hope to talk about writing and the experiences I've had with writing, which have included studying abroad and living in England for a year. And so I can also talk about travel in England. For today, I just thought I would talk about some books that I've read so far this year, just so you kind of know what type of reading I'm doing, and hopefully you'll want to watch my channel. But the first book I read this year is The Forgotten Book. It's by Mathilde Glaser, I think is how you say that. I might be completely wrong. But it is a German writer, and this book has been translated to English from German. When I saw that on the back, for some reason, just the idea of this sort of thing coming out of a book and the fact that it was translated from German, it really reminded me of Inkheart. It really reached out to me in that way, because Inkheart by Cornelia Funk is one of the books that got me into reading in the first place back when I was in middle school. So yeah, so it really caught my eye. I was at a used bookstore that I like to go to because they give out a little like free book for your birthday every year kind of deal. So I went for my birthday book, and at first I could not find one. And this book, I picked it up and I put it down, and then I picked it up again, and I finally came back to it, and I knew this was just the one I had to get. And I was kind of like, oh, well, it's free. If I don't love it, I wasn't sure. It has some parallels to Pride and Prejudice. I wasn't sure. I was like, Pride and Prejudice, I don't know if I'm gonna like this. I didn't really like that. But this book is a lot of fun. I really, really loved it. It's gonna be one of my favorite books I've read this year. It might be one of my favorite books of all time. It definitely stands out. I have definitely been thinking about it since I've read it. I haven't stopped thinking about it since I read it in the beginning of January, which is pretty good hallmark of an amazing book. It has a really fairy tale vibe to it. In many ways, it reminded me of Pan's Labyrinth, which, if you've seen, is a just breathtaking movie. It also had the sort of fun banter that was very parallel between Emma and Darcy, which are also the characters' names in this book. But even if you're not a fan of Pride and Prejudice, like myself, not a big fan anyway, I think you'll really like this book. I think anyone who likes magical realism and fairy tales will love this book. It's just a lot of fun. It keeps you in suspense. It has a little bit of a kind of, a little bit of a touch of a horror genre even in it too. But nothing that kept me up at night or anything. It kept me up at night at the end. I stayed up all night to finish it once I got to like the last little bit because I could not stop at a certain point. But it is worth a read. I highly, highly suggest this one. The other book I read this year was We Are Okay by Nina LaCour. Nina LaCour is one of my favorite authors. I will read anything she puts out. I had been saving this for a long time. I knew it was a shorter book. I knew it got really good reviews, and I knew that it was about a girl who was stuck in her college dorm over winter break that is in upstate New York. And I did my undergraduate degree in upstate New York, and I know exactly what it feels like to be new and lonely in the secluded, snowy area of upstate New York. So I knew that I would relate to this book really hardcore, and I did. It had a lot more to it that I was not expecting. It was about friendship, it was about love, it was about family, and it was about loss. Like, really, overall, I would say the main theme of this book was about loss, but it was also about growth and new love and moving forward, and I loved it. It was amazing. I read it during the winter. I think that's the perfect time to read it, just during the winter, all cozy in your bed. It's just, it's a beautiful book, and it is well worth it, and I also highly, highly recommend it. And anything else Nina LaCour has written. The next book I also read was Eleanor and Park. I started this a long time ago when I first picked it up, closer to when it came out, and I just could not get into it for the life of me. I read the first 2 chapters, and it just was not the right time. But I came back to it this year, finally, at long last, after it being on my shelf for quite a few years and on my to-read list for way, way too long. And I loved it. It was really cool. It definitely was darker than I thought it was going to be, but it has some amazing themes. There's themes about bullying, about body shaming, being of mixed ethnicity. It takes place in the 80s, which it's definitely very in its time period. Some of the things you're seeing happening just kind of make your brain explode a little bit living in 2020. But also some things are way too close to what we are experiencing. Anyway, I'm not going to go off on that existential, another video. So, this book is just, it's beautiful, and it's about a first love, and it's hopeful, and as sad as it is, and as heartbreaking as it is, it's also really nice, and it's a really good, solid, classic book, and I would definitely recommend it. And it really made me sure that I want to read more Rainbow Rowell, so I'm really excited to delve into her other novels, and I hope to at least read one more within this year, if not more than one. I own Fangirl and Carry On, and I think I'm going to read Fangirl next, so let me know below if that's a good choice. The other book I've read this year is The Cruel Prince. I really enjoyed The Cruel Prince. It came in one of my Owlcrate books, so it is actually a specific cover, unique cover that they did just for Owlcrate, as well as being signed by Holly Black. I was really excited when this came in my Owlcrate. Last year I read, was it last year or the year before? Now I can't remember. I read The Coldest Girl in Cold Town, and I really loved it, and that was the first Holly Black book I read. And I'm just really excited for this series. I finished this book. I found it a bit stressful to read, I will say, and I think I will decide how that makes me feel more as I read on in the series, if I feel as though I feel resolved by what continues to happen. But for the time being, as I'm reading now, I am reading The Cruel King right now, the sequel, which is the second book in the series. There's also The Queen of Nothing is the third book, and I definitely want to finish it. I definitely feel like this series, I'm going to see it through. I found it stressful. Like I said, I had a hard time sleeping when I got to a certain point in this book, and not because I wanted to stay up and keep reading it, but because it was actually stressing me out to read it. The main character, Jude, has a twin sister. They are human. Their older sister is half fairy, and that is how they end up living in fairy, because their older sister's father comes to find them and sort of kidnaps all three of them away to fairy. And there's a lot going on. There's a lot of politics. There's a lot of power struggle. Jude, the main character, she is really cool. What keeps me going with this is that I really like Jude. It's not that I find her to be the most relatable, but she's cutthroat, and that is cool for a female character. There's another book that I've read this year that also has a really cutthroat female character, that I also appreciate. And I don't think, it's not as if I read mostly books with strong female characters, but I just like that she just doesn't really feel the need to apologize for anything. She's like, if someone hurts me, I'm gonna kill them. That's the way it is. And it's kind of a nice fantasy to live in sometimes, that the world could work that way. But, this isn't fairy, so it's not in the human world. But yeah, I like her character. The love interest, I think, is what stresses me out the most. There's a couple kind of in this book, there's a couple love interest things going on, and they kind of stress me out. I'm interested, though. I'm really interested. So I'm a little unsure about how I stand on it. It was fun. It was good. I like the complexity of the fairy world. I enjoy dark fairies, which they are. And I really like Jude's character, who is fighting for her place in a world that is not her own. And I think that is a very cool plot line. But I'm going to see what happens and probably do another video to talk about my final sort of feelings for the series. But so far, I'm definitely enjoying it, and definitely wanting to finish the series as soon as I can. The other book I've read this year is A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. I've been wanting to read this for a very long time. I decided to bring it with me when I went to stay in London in February. It was amazing. It was the best choice I've made. I read like the first third of it on the plane ride there, and I read almost the rest of it throughout the trip and on the plane ride home. And it was just so much fun to be reading a book about four alternative Londons while I was in London, in real London. So this was just so much fun to read. I loved this novel. I love Kel and I love Lila, both the characters. Lila is the other cutthroat female character that I was referring to earlier. And they're both just such great characters. Kel is so lovable. Lila is really relatable and a strong, powerful female character that's fun to follow. I was really pleasantly surprised when I started reading and I realized it was a dual narrative, because on the back I felt that it was only really talking about Kel. It does mention Lila, but it doesn't really, it makes it sound like the story is only about Kel, which I was fine with. The first line, like, got me. When I read, I knew about V. Schwab because I've read one of her children's books, and really, really loved it. But I knew about this first. I wanted to read this first, but I just didn't get to it for some reason. And so I was already very excited and very, very thinking I was going to love V. Schwab's writing. And so the first two lines, though, are like, they just got me. It was like, this is going to be so much fun. It starts out, Kel wore a very peculiar coat. It had neither one side, which would be conventional, nor two, which would be unexpected, but several, which was, of course, impossible. And I was like, that's it. That's all I needed. And when they threw in Lila as a character, I was just like, yes, this is everything I needed. I love the world. I love the magic being used. It's so exciting. There's so many cool concepts, and I cannot wait to read the next book and finish the whole series. I don't own the second book right now, and the way this book ended, I was able to sort of walk away from it for a little while. It ends in a way that's not a cliffhanger, so I was able to kind of be like, okay, I can set this aside, I can be okay with this world, I don't have to worry about it for now. But it's so much fun to read that I still, even though it wasn't a cliffhanger, I cannot wait to pick up the next book. Because there's definitely some unanswered questions that I am super curious about. I'm definitely going to be buying the second and third book as soon as I can. I might buy them today because I have a gift card and there's a sale going on, and you know. Yes. Amazing. Highly, highly recommend it. The other two books I've read this year are a little bit of shorter books. I kind of feel like you have to do a few little kind of fun books in the year, especially if you're trying to make a good count of reading on how many books you could read in a year. And you just need something lighthearted and fun once in a while, which my most lighthearted book is Charlie the Unicorn Lost in Dream Space. It's by Jason Steele. And this book came to me because I supported the Kickstarter. It is a unique Charlie story that's never been released before. If you're familiar with Charlie the Unicorn, it is a series of YouTube videos that came out in the early 2000s. They're finally making sort of the final video, at least that's what they're saying. And I think only the first part has been released, so I'm really hoping the rest gets released soon, but I know that Jason Steele had some issues with it, so all the love to him. He's doing great. It's all right. But I'm so excited for the videos to actually come out. I needed to own this. It is signed by him. As you know, as I am called unicorns and typewriters, I have an interest in unicorns. I'm also wearing my lovely unicorn shirt today, which you should be able to see. And it's influenced me in many ways and just brought a lot of laughs to my life. Charlie the Unicorn was just something that I used to joke around with all my friends about. It was a lot of fun. As you might know, with how Charlie the Unicorn gets, this book is weird AF. It's the weirdest book, but it's beautiful. It's so beautiful, and I'm so glad I have it, and if you do, you understand the appreciation too. And then the other book I read kind of just for fun, it was another reread because I have read the Charlie book before, and this was also a reread. This is The Melancholy Death of Oyster Boy and Other Stories by Tim Burton. It is Tim Burton's only published book. It is a poetry collection. It is poetry and illustrations, as you can see. It's really amazing. It's one of those things, if you're a Tim Burton fan, you should totally pick it up because there's just nothing like it. It's got some beautiful little Tim Burton illustrations in it. Yeah, it's just a lot of fun. I read it in one sitting, just reread it for fun, and was just reminded by how amazing Tim Burton is and how much I wish that Tim Burton still produced original content, which the world is just sorely, sorely lacking because he doesn't really do original stuff anymore. I'm a big Tim Burton fan and a big fan of his original work and his stop motion animation, and yeah, maybe more on that another time. Really has nothing to do with books except for this one book, but if you're a Tim Burton fan, check it out. So yeah, I have a lot of books I want to read this year. Like I said, mostly young adult. I do read some poetry books on occasion. I do read an adult book on occasion. Currently, I'm working on The Wicked King by Holly Black. So the next book after The Cruel Prince that I've read. I think earlier I might have called it The Cruel King. It's called The Wicked King, just for clarification. And so, yeah, so I'm excited to see where that series goes. I'm excited to read on A Darker Shade of Magic. I'm going to keep reading that series. And there's just so many other books I'm going to read this year. So I hope that what I'm doing and what I'm talking about sounds good to you guys. I hope some of you might be interested in hearing about my education as a writer, what I've done as a writer, what I've experienced, what I've learned so far, and what it's like to study abroad in England, what it's like to live in England, the different things you can do that are Harry Potter related. I want to definitely talk about the Harry Potter studio tour and a few other sites that I visited that I think are well worth seeing if you're in the area. I really hope that you'll subscribe to my channel, give me a follow, give me a like, check out my Instagram at Unicorns and Typewriters, and I hope I'll see you all again soon. Have a good week. Bye!